Hi, welcome to Spark. My name is Roy Stein, and I'm an animator and a first-time filmmaker. And I'm here with the amazing Mark Osborne to talk about a little bit about my film, Too Late. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going very well.
Good to see you. Thanks for the introduction. And congrats on the film.
Thank you so much.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. It's really strange. I didn't expect it to win anything or to get anywhere. And you know this because you've seen the film, probably one of the first people that ever saw like a super early cut of the animatic years ago. And, you know, just help get my brain around what an audience might take from a short film and get my head on straight and kind of the direction of where I can take this with the idea that I had in mind. So it's really weird to kind of circle back all this time after and then talk to you about this. It's amazing.
Well, this is why I wanted to do it, because I was like, seriously, I mean, it's really exciting for me. I mean, a lot of people start shorts and a lot of people want to make shorts, but not only did you actually make it and finish it, but it's great. And now it's prize winning. So yeah, huge congrats. And it was really cool. I love seeing the process, and getting that early peek at the film was definitely why I wanted to circle back with you. And just to give a little bit of our history, you were an animator on Little Prince, and that's when we got to know each other a little bit. And that's why it's another reason why, you know, I'm always telling people to make shorts. So you did a great job, and I love the chance to be able to talk to you about it and ask you some questions. So
please do. I hope not to disappoint with my answers, but yeah, I remember you talking about making shorts back in 2013, 14, whenever we worked on Little Prince. And it's as an animator, and you can probably kind of comment on that as well. You tend to think that you know how to make movies. And then when you actually start making a short, you realize that you don't know how to make movies. And you have this like very like small tunnel vision into movie making. Not that I have like so much knowledge right now after just making one, but I realized how little I really knew about making films. So it was definitely important to kind of take that step, even though I didn't know how I was ever going to finish it, like you mentioned before.
Well, you learn by doing, and that's why I was like, that's great that you persevered and you pushed through. But let's go back to the way beginning. So what was the germ of the idea? What was the thing that made you want to tell this story? Like, what was the inspiration?
So the idea of somebody stuck in a cubicle and going nuts was always there, because I grew up with a father who was in that position, and he was very open about it, always telling me, listen, if you do one thing, make sure that you pursue what you like to do on a daily basis so you don't feel trapped when you're at work. And I took it to heart. And it's always like this love letter to my dad in a way where he's retired now, but he was always kind of banging me over the head and making sure that I'm following my heart and making sure that I really pursue the creative path. So taking it to an extreme, even within working in the industry, and even before that, as a student, and before that, as a non-professional, I had to spend a lot of time working night shifts, doing crazy long hours, where your mind started bending and you start questioning reality, and things become very surreal. And I always wrote small stories about it, even back in art school and after. But it was never quite satisfying to me. I never felt like I got everything that I wanted from the concept of overwork and what it can do to your psyche. And when I got to a certain part of my animation career, I was open enough and I knew enough people that I knew I can rely on to help me out with this type of collaboration to actually take on a bigger kind of step in that direction, telling that story. And that's where it really kind of started becoming this animatic.
And then from, because like the production value is so impressive, like how did you pull it off? Because like I said, you know, a lot of people want to make a short, but to actually follow through at a high level is a challenge. So give us the particulars. Who was your team, your key team, and how did you do it?
So first and foremost, I had a tone in mind. And I don't know if you remember when we talked about the film before it was a film, I talked to you about like the 80s thrillers and horror movies and all that type of somewhat theatrical, almost like a stage play horror thriller look, which is something that I grew up with. So the tone was the easiest thing to kind of adhere to, because you always can tell when it's not working and when it's not that, when you have something specific that you're aiming for. To get it done, I needed really, really good people. And I'm so lucky because I moved so much in the industry and I've moved all around the world, as you know. I was able to kind of collect, for lack of a better word, amazing friends and artists that are so good at what they do. So one of the first collaborators is called Piero McGowan, and he's my production designer, and he's a senior concept artist on the East Coast for a games company. And we met back in school when I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art. So that was, I don't know, 16, 17 years ago. And we kept in touch ever since. We never worked together. But the moment I started working on this film, I picked up the phone and I called him because I knew that I needed somebody as strong of an artist as him to be able to pull it off. So cool. That's just the one aspect, but there's so many people that helped kind of melt this into what it is right now.
How many people would you say, because it's always kind of mind-blowing to know how many people get involved in something, but how many people were involved that helped you pull this off?
I think the core team was between 10 or 13 people overall.
Wow, cool.
And the super kind of hands-on weekly dailies and feedback and all that stuff, that's probably around 7 or 8. Including my editor, Martin Smith, and my producer, Jessica Cole, and my CG supervisor, Panos Palares. I'm going to name drop a lot.
Yeah. I love it.
And the sound designer, Bonnie Baez, and lots and lots of other talented people. But globally, I think about 40 people, give or take, have helped me on this film. Including people that were able to help out with one shot or one asset. Or even I have an animator friend who was able to only animate one shot, but he filmed reference for 3 more shots, which was super useful. Like the shot at the very end where he puts the hat on, that's used directly from a reference that he took. So I took any help that I could get, really, and I was really amazed by how much people wanted to help out and give out from their personal time, because that's kind of the film is talking about work-life balance and the fact that you don't want to overwork, but at the end of the day, we worked during nights and on weekends on this film, and you know, it was a collaboration. So I was blown away by the fact that so many people were helping out. Yeah, it's a cautionary tale that everybody involved had to live through to some extent. And some, you know, I mean, that's the animation industry. And I mean, even back in school, I remember losing time just getting so involved in something. You just kind of, you know, so I think it's a very relatable concept, you know. So how does your dad feel about it? He loves it. He loves it.
Great.
Fortunately, I couldn't see it with him because of COVID. I couldn't fly back to Israel, but I was there through Skype or FaceTime when my family was watching it, and it was exciting to get him finally to see it, because he didn't know anything about his connection to the film. Like, I never told him this is a derivative of everything we've been talking about. So I think it made quite the impact, but yeah, he seems to like it. That's
great. And then, yeah, I'm sorry that you're not getting the full festival experience, and you're not able to. Did it affect the making of the film? I'm not exactly sure the timeline of when you finished. I can't remember.
So around March, we were at the very, very close to finishing. We basically did the last big push and lighting, rendering, comp, somewhere between March and the end of May. So somewhere in between, we started applying for festivals and sending work in progress and stuff. By then, it sounded like there might not be festivals, period. There wasn't any talk of online festivals. There wasn't talk about any festivals.
Right.
So we didn't know what to do, but we started pushing the film out while we were finishing it up, and basically made a decision to see what's happening with the pandemic, and then making a conscious decision once the film is complete. The film was 100% complete beginning of August, which gave us a little bit more time and to really kind of get an idea of where the festivals were going this year. It is a bit of a disappointment that I can't travel and go see the film where it's playing. And some of the festivals were actually physical festivals, especially in Europe, where it was playing in Oslo and Italy and other places, but couldn't fly. So the alternative was sitting on it for another year, hoping that next year COVID is going to be, it won't be our problem anymore, and everybody's going to be fine with travel and festivals and public gatherings. But even then, that's not a guarantee.
I think you did the right thing. You gotta put it out there, and I hope, I'm sure it's going to have a lot of play, and I hope you can enjoy it, as best you can. But yeah, it's a bummer. I'm sorry Spark is a great event, and that's a reason why I'm continuing to try to be involved. I really enjoyed my time there, and hopefully next year it'll be back on, and then you'll be sort of doing Q&As with people and as a friend of the festival. All right. So what I'm going to try to ask a couple of other more interesting questions. So what was the most challenging aspect of, I know shorts are completely, always a nightmare, like no matter what, but like, what do you think was the most challenging aspect of making the film that surprised you?
What surprised me is that everything was difficult. I came in thinking that I have experience with design and animation mostly, and some experience with music. So I was thinking, at least in those departments, things will be a bit more straightforward. Nothing was straightforward. Everything was so difficult that it felt, and I'm not kidding, every time we finished in one department and moved on to the next department, it felt like, okay, so this film is not happening. It was that bad. I obviously didn't tell it to any of my crew, so the first time now. But yeah, every single time it feels like it's an impossible task. We haven't done this before. We don't have a budget. There's no time. We're limited by our, everything that we do, especially towards the end of the spectrum with COVID and people really, not having extra time, especially when we needed people in lighting and so forth. But every step of the way, animation specifically was, I think it was more in terms of the way I cast the shots. I think I could have done better initially, because there was a lot of back and forth and moving things around and being uncertain. And that's the department I should have probably been the most kind of, knowledgeable and hands-on, and it ended up being the most chaotic, probably because it was so scared of making sure the quality like holds up.
Right.
I constantly thought about this. I'm coming from an industry of people with a lot of opinions and good opinions and skills, and I need to make sure that we're hitting this bar. So it works even for people in the industry. And that was always in the back of my head. So whenever you work on a shot and the shot delivers what it needs to deliver, but you have that kind of small kind of voice in your head, like, is it though? Is it really enough? Could it be better? That was in animation. I allowed myself to listen to that voice a little bit too much, I think. Otherwise it was just.
It's highly polished though. So it's, I mean, and you kind of have to pick your battles. Yeah. I think that's the thing I always try to tell short filmmakers, rather than try to perfect everything. Like, it's better to have a finished film that has some imperfections or have things that you wish, I mean, whatever, a feature film too, like any film, like you can't make it perfect. And so don't try to, you have to kind of let go a little bit. Yeah. But I'm glad that you learned so much. I mean, is there anything you would say to those like you who want to make a short? Like, what advice would you give?
That's the funny thing about making a short. After I started making a short, I immediately got a lot of people talking to me about shorts they want to make, and people starting to make shorts. People just open up to you about, even if they are not necessarily in production or even pre-production, they will start talking to you about it because they feel like you've made that step, so you're safe. They can talk to you in confidence without having to make that commitment to get more information. So I love it. I talk to people about shorts all the time now, even though I have no real, like I made one,
right?
but it's from the one I chose something that was not necessarily the easiest way around. It's CG, lots of effects, no dialogue, so that was helpful. But
it's a good choice.
It's great talking to people about. I'm constantly encouraging people that are on the fence whether they have an idea and whether they should make it, because it's just it's so important to get more voices out there.
And it's funny you mentioned the no dialogue, because that's one of the pieces of advice I always give. I said, if you can do something with no dialogue, you're going to have a much better time. You can go to festivals all over the world. There's less expense for, having to translate things. And also I think it's a better assignment to give yourself. It's you know what I mean? It's like, it's giving you a greater challenge and in some cases. So another reason to say, bravo, hats off.
Well, your short film, your amazing short film more is as far as I remember, it doesn't have dialogue, right?
No dialogue. Yeah, it's got some text, but I don't even think that got translated. Like, I think it ended up playing all over the world, but that was something I didn't plan, or it was like a surprise. It was a pleasant surprise to realize how, but so yeah, that's great. Okay, so what's next for you? Are you turning this into a feature? Are you going to make a sequel short? What are you doing next?
So when I started this film, I had 3 or 4 outlines of things that I wanted to make. And I chose the one that I felt at the time was the simplest to make and would take me the least amount of time. I thought it would take about 1.5 years, 2 years. It took almost 4. But I do have the other outlines, and I have one of them is a lot more advanced, and I've been pushing it really hard, and that's going to be my next short that I'm working on.
Cool.
And I'm still investigating how to make that jump, and whether I'm qualified enough or have enough to say or to offer to make that jump to directing. And by doing more, I'll learn more. And even if it doesn't happen, the act of making films the way I see them, the way I want to, like the tonality and the visuals and the pacing and everything and the music, it doesn't have to be financially successful, so I can kind of learn on my own path. Well, this one in particular, I'm still thinking of in terms of whether it has somewhere to go. For the time being, the next project is going to be more focused about music and my connection to music, in particular classical music, and the connection of classical music and my generation, and how that is kind of becoming less of a thing. Otherwise, there's many things that I'm kind of poking my fingers into to try and learn how to create content and being better with knowing where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are, and I feel like through making stuff that are difficult, I'm definitely going to find out more things about myself. I think the one thing that first of all, I haven't said anything about your connection to the film, or very little. Your input early on, just in terms of tone. If there's nothing else that I can say, but just your focus on tone, and I think we talked about Balance, that stop motion film.
That
we both like.
Simplicity, yeah.
And just the taking and combining, and I think we were talking about a narrative versus a tonal short, and the fact that you don't necessarily have to have a coherent storyline or a coherent conclusion if the tone carries the film enough. And I tried to do a bit of a mix with Too Late. I don't know how successful I was, but at the end of the day, there is a bit of a story. It's a simple story, but it's also very, I think, very moody, or it has a little bit of this feel, this kind of icky feel, which again is derived from all the references that I liked, all the Kubricks and the Burtons of the world. But yeah, your input on it was so significant early on. So I can't thank you enough.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, like I said, I'm a big believer in shorts, and so you're a success story. As far as again, it's really hard to follow through, and it's really hard to figure out how to do it. And like you said, you navigated and you learned how hard everything is, and it is an interesting. I didn't know what I was doing when I started making shorts, but I was compelled to figure it out, and I learned by doing. So I hope it sets a good example for others that are doing it right now, because it's never easy. It's never easy, and I always try to tell students that when I'm talking to students, I'm like, you want to give up, like you just want to give up, like it's the truth, and you got to power through. So anyway, bravo.
Thank you so much.
Congrats for powering through, and it's really cool, and I'm excited for you. I'm excited for what's next. So
same here. And hopefully our professional paths will cross again.
That would be nice. That'd be nice.
Or another.
Yeah, keep me posted.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you, Spark. All right.
Yeah, thanks, Spark. Thank you. All right.